Hi, and welcome back for part 2 of the website build using the free version of the Hestia theme. This part is a little heavy on CSS or cascading style sheet for adding a bit more customization to the website. So take note of the timestamps in the video's description for the must-watch sections if you want to skip ahead. The full CSS will be provided in a file linked in the description. Enjoy! Alright, so one of the first things we're going to do here is we're going to install an extension called Stylebot. And that's pretty popular out there. It's used for creating what's called CSS. And what it is almost like it's basically a Chrome extension for trying out CSS on your website. So if you're not familiar with what CSS is, it stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And what that allows you to do is style the various elements on your website. So for example, if you want to make some font bold or have some text that has a shadow on it, you can do that pretty easily with CSS. So Stylebot is basically a Chrome extension that allows you to play around with that CSS. So let's go ahead and install Stylebot. In order to install Stylebot, we're going to have to go to the Chrome Web Store. So let's go chrome.google.com. Let's see, Web Store. All right. And then we're going to search the web store. We're going to search for Stylebot. All right. And the one we want is this one here, Stylebot, not Stylebot Lite. Click on that, add to Chrome. And we're going to click on Add Extensions. Okay, get a notification up here. Stylebot has been added to Chrome. You'll see up here in the corner, CSS shows up. Just click on this close button there. So now we've got Stylebot on our Google Chrome as an extension. All right, so basically I'm on the WordPress dashboard area here. So what I want to do now is I want to go to Visit Site from Tech Apprentice Demo at the top here. Click on Visit Site. And what I want to show you real quick is there's a tool called Inspect. So I'm going to try to not get too geeky here and just stay really high level, but what we want to basically do is kind of style some of the elements on our page. So like for example, this text, I want to change it up and give it a little more flair. So if I right click on this and I come down here to Inspect, now this is more of a developer's tool. So what you'll see on the right hand side here, this is all the HTML code. So as I run my mouse over it, you'll see that all these different highlights show up over the page. And then, so if I look at this window here, you'll see elements. So this is our elements section here. This is all of our code basically. If we come over here to styles, this is where we're actually styling that element. So there's a basic element thrown on the page. It's kind of like if you have a car you're building or building a house, you'll have siding. And then your siding will be certain colors like blue or gray or whatever. So this part here is more or less the siding. And then the styles area over here is the color. So you'll see all this really strange notation over here. So I'll give you a couple of examples as we go through this of what the HTML is and what the CSS is related to that and how they work together. And then as we come over here, we've got this other tab called Computed. So if you click on that, you'll see that we have this margin, border, padding, and then we have the size of our actual element. So in this case, we've got an element that's an H1 or a heading 1, which is right here. So heading 1, if you kind of think of like Microsoft Word as an example, Microsoft Word has these headings like H1 or H2. This is very similar. So you'll see here that's the size of our item. And then this is the padding around that item. So as an example, if you have a container or a box you're going to ship through UPS, you'll have a box, and then inside that box you'll have some padding, and then inside that padding you'll have the item you're going to be shipping. So it's a very similar concept here. And then you have your border, which more or less represents your box, or the size of your cardboard box. And then you'll have here your margin. So margin is, for example, if you have two boxes next to each other, the margin would be the space between those two boxes. So that's how that works there. So this is a pretty good representation here of this one element that we're looking at. So again, we're looking at elements here. This is your elements. These are the styles for those elements. Looks really confusing right now, but I'll kind of break some of it down later. And then computed is more of a high-level view of that element. So one thing I wanted to mention is that you're not actually going to have to know CSS to build this website. I'm going to give you all the CSS that I'm going to be using here. And I'll put lots of notes throughout the CSS that'll help you understand what it's doing. So one thing I wanted to point out, though, is that there's a website that I've used for probably about 15 plus years to learn various technologies, and that's w3schools.com. It's a pretty cool website. It's been around, like I said, for a long time. And right here, for example, they have Learn CSS. So if you click on that, it gives you all sorts of information about various what they call properties for CSS. So as an example, a property would be something like background color, light blue. And they have all these different sections here where you can actually try out the code yourself and see a representation of that code. So let's click on Try It Yourself here, just to give you an example. You'll notice here, this is our HTML code. We've got some CSS in there, or style sheet information. So this one says body, background color, light blue. You'll see there's a light blue here. So if I were to come over here and change this to red, and then click on run, now we'll see the background is red. So that's a really cool feature of this website that I really like, is that you can actually play around with the code and go through some of the examples and really visualize exactly what it's doing. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start at the top of the page and just kind of work our way down the page. We're going to start up here at the top bar. And what I want to do is go ahead and get rid of this add a menu text right there. So let's take an example here. Let's go ahead and use Stylebot to try to style this. And what you want to do is, you can't really do this with the customizer open, so you're going to have to make sure your customizer is closed. That is definitely something you can't do with Stylebot, is have the customizer open and have Stylebot open at the same time. So we're going to right click on add a menu. We're going to come down here and choose Stylebot style element. And you'll notice right there, right away, we've got this green box that showed up around that add a menu element. And if you come over here to the Stylebot window, it basically gave us a name of this item. Now you want to be very careful about this, because there may be multiple items on the same page or throughout your website that have the same name. In this case, because this is the top bar, I'm pretty confident that this is the only item that has that name. So what we're looking at here is, I'll just kind of break this down for you. I'm not going to get too technical, like I said. This is an unordered list item. It's in the navigation top bar. And this list item on that list is add a menu. And then the A stands for anchor. So you may notice, like, for example, if you go to a website and you hover over it and you click on it, it'll take you somewhere. That's more or less what an anchor tag does. It takes you to some other location on your website, or maybe another page off your website. So again, I'm not going to get too much into that, but that by using Stylebot in this way, it gives us the name of that element. And then we've got some basic little features we can manipulate. So what I want to do with this one is I want to hide it. So if I come down here inside of Stylebot, we'll see we've got this visibility down here, and there's a hide button. So if I click on that, you can see it's gone now. So if we go over here to edit CSS, click on that, we'll notice this is the CSS that was produced by Stylebot to hide that element. So what we can do is just go ahead and copy this. Just copy that. And you can also save it. So if you want to save this, if I click on save, what will happen is it'll keep it inside of Stylebot, and you'll see that that item is gone there. And then what I want to do here is close out of Stylebot. And you'll notice at the top here, the CSS is in green now. And that's because we have CSS that's been saved inside of Stylebot. So what I'll do is come over here to Customize. And I'm going to come down here to Additional CSS. And we've got this big window here we can put our CSS. So if I drop this in here now, go ahead and paste it. There's our CSS. And what we would want to do is click on Publish to save it. All right. And let's see here. The other thing we're going to want to do now is go back out. We'll close this window out. And what I want to do is get rid of that from Stylebot. If you're working on styling your page and you've got something in Stylebot, that's not really good to have it in two different places. So we're going to go ahead and take this out of here. We'll say remove styling. And you'll notice this went back now to where the text is all CSS is black now. So the CSS that we added to that customizer area is what is affecting this top bar now. So if I come over here, go back to Customize, come down here to Additional CSS, there's our CSS right there. Now, the one thing I'm going to do as we go along, I'm going to go ahead and kind of structure this to where, like I said, you can read it on your own and you'll understand exactly what it's doing. So what I'm going to do is I have a file on the side here that I'm going to copy some CSS out of. I'm going to grab this here. And I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. So what I've done here, this is a comment right there. You'll see there's a slash, an asterisk, and then some text here, some characters, another asterisk, and a slash. So this notation here, the asterisk and the slash in the beginning, and the asterisk and the slash in the end, that means comment. So that's not actually CSS. That's not actually code. So if I come down here now, what I've put in here, I've called this CSS1, turn off left menu in top bar. So just kind of be prepared for that. Anytime you see any CSS that I put in this field here, it's going to have some sort of a comment explaining exactly what it's doing. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. That's what that that X was complaining about there. It was complaining about not having this closing, what they call a curly brace there, to close this out. So you have to have one at the beginning and then one at the end too. So that's all done. We've got our add a menu hidden now. And what I would also want to do in the top bar is I want to set the background color. So what we can do here, we can go ahead and publish this. I'm going to save this now. And then you can kind of repeat the same process we did with using Stylebot. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to grab the CSS that I have already. I'm going to say copy here, and I'm going to drop it in here. All right. So what I've done here, I've called this one CSS2, and I set the background color of the top bar. So that's what this comment is here. This is the name of our top bar. It's coming from the code. I already knew what that was because I had looked it up. And then this is the background color. We saw that before when we were playing around with the W3 Schools website. We have this background color property. And this is the value here. That is what they call a hex color. So if you were to go to, there's a website that I use called HTML colorcodes.com. If you go there and say I take this hex code here, it's usually 6 characters preceded by a pound sign. So if I take this here, I copy this, and I come over here, and I come to this field here and drop this code in. Actually, I don't think I need the pound sign because it's already there. Take that out, and I hit enter. You'll see that gives us our color there. It's kind of a bluish gray. So I use this website a lot. It's a really easy color picker tool to use. It's pretty cool. So that's our color we're going to use for our top bar. All right, so again, getting the top bar information, all I did was go up here to the top bar. I've got my full website visible here without the customizer on the side. And I went up here, right clicked on this, go to Stylebot and Style Element, and it gave us a name, div.hestia-top-bar. And then all I wanted to do was change the color of that, the background color. So I come down here, I put in my background color, which was pound 959 FB8. And then I click on Edit CSS, and you'll see it generated that code for me. So you want to make sure that you choose the right item though, because let me go ahead and clear this out here. Reset the page. You want to make sure you choose the right item, because if I come over here and just click on this selector and then I start running my mouse over the page, you notice right there, that's not the full bar. That's just one box on the bar, one area on the bar. So this is the full bar here. So if I click on that, you'll see that's the name of the full bar. So you have to be very careful about that. If you're wondering what a div is, I think it's probably going to be best to do like a separate video on CSS. But basically a div is almost like a box on the page. So you'll have a lot of these boxes inside of boxes and boxes next to boxes that are kind of like what you're seeing right here with this green outline. They're not really visible to the naked eye, but they exist in the background and allow developers to put items on a page and be able to style those elements. Okay, so now we've got our top bar styled. I'm going to go ahead and move on to this navigation bar here. So that includes the logo and it includes this menu here. So what I'm going to do first of all, go back into our customizer. And I'm going to go ahead and go down here to additional CSS. So we've got our top bar section separate there. I'm going to drop down here, right below it. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change the size of the logo. It's a little bit too small. So I'm going to grab some CSS that I have here, bring that over. All right, you see the logo changed in size, as did the rest of our bar here. I'm going to also, let's see here, I'm going to also make that container for this a little bit larger. And I'm going to move it up a little bit. So how I'm going to do that is using this CSS here. Okay. And one other thing I want to do is kind of widen this out a little bit. I want to have the logo a little bit more to the left and have this menu a little bit more to the right so it's not so prominent on the page. So what I'm going to do here is widen that by making this container, changing the width of that container of these items here. So there's a container around these two items, around this logo and around this navigation bar here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and, or at least around the menu I should say, go ahead and drop this in here. There we go. Looks like it got pushed out just a little bit there. Okay. And what else we want to do here? One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color. So there's a background color you can set for when you're scrolling. You'll notice there that white showed up. I'm going to change that just slightly. So I'm going to copy this CSS. Okay, so when I scroll now, we've got a different background color. It's more of a kind of a light gray almost, a light, kind of an off-white, right? And then I'm going to also change the font size for these items here. And I'm going to change the font itself. So right now it's got a, I think it's a Georgia maybe, or a Times New Roman, I can't remember. But we're going to change that to Arial. And then we're also going to make it a little bit larger. So we'll go ahead and do that. Drop that in here. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. A little cleaner looking font there. So again, I'm going to give you all this CSS. If you get bored and you don't want to watch the whole video, I'll give you all the CSS and you can play around with it. But next we're going to go ahead and continue on with setting our colors. So I want to change this font. I want to make this font bold. It's not standing out enough for me here. So I'm going to do that first. And then I'm also going to change the color of it too. So the color that we're going to set is a color for when the item is actually selected. So let's go ahead and do that here. I'm going to say copy, drop my CSS in here. So if I click on home right now, as an example, what happened? That didn't work right. Okay, so yeah. So when we select I selected About Us, it turned to green. If I go back to home, it's probably going to be the same. Yeah, I think the home is the only one that's not affected. So shop, it's green. There we go. All right. And next I'm going to do a hover effect too. So what I want to have happen is when I hover over one of these items here, you notice that it kind of has this little shadow that shows up. So what I want to do is also have it increase in size. And then maybe change the color to like a light gray. So let's go ahead and do that real quick here. All right. So when I hover now, let's see here. We publish this CSS first. See if that changes it. Yep, I might have to refresh this page. Hold on one second here. All right, so if I hover now. All right, I forgot that I had changed the name of this menu item. It's no longer primary menu, it's main menu. So let me change that real quick here. Main menu. Same thing with this one. So if you hover now, you can see, yeah, it's bold, it's gray, and it's 1.5 times the size when you hover over it. So that's pretty cool. It's a nice little effect there. Go ahead and publish that. So that pretty much takes care of our menu bar. We just made the logo a little bit larger, made our font a little bit cleaner, and then also added a little bit of an effect to it when we hover. All right, so now we've got this navigation area basically all completed. What I want to do now is style the text in the title section. So one thing to be cognizant of when you're doing this though is that we have several devices we need to make sure are styled appropriately. So for example, we have our desktop. If you notice down here, we've got these little controls here. We've got the desktop. That's for tablet. And then for mobile. So we need to be very cognizant of how our website looks on each one of these devices. So I'm going to go back to desktop here. I'm going to go into my CSS. And I'm going to add a section here that splits up the styling based on the screen size. So the first thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and drop this in there. Okay, so it's a little comment there just to remind me that we're doing some settings by screen size. And then I'll come over here and I'll grab my first one I want to change is based on desktop settings. So I'll grab this drop this in here. Okay, so you can see instantly that we had our text change. So what we're doing here is, and I'm just going to kind of briefly run over this. Again, I'm not really going to be discussing CSS a ton in this video. I'm not going to give much of a tutorial on it. I might do that in a separate video, but what I'm saying here basically is that based on our screen size, which is a minimum width of 1025 pixels, that's how I want my text to look. So you can see here, if we come over here to this one, we can see that it was not styled because it falls outside that minimum screen size. Same thing with the mobile device. Okay, so the only thing we have styled here is our desktop. So all I did here was I changed the font size to 85 pixels. I changed the color to red. I made the height, the line height, 1.8 EM. So EM is another notation like pixels, but it's a different, it's not actually pixels. So that's the spacing between the lines here. So our text shadow values are -3 pixels, 2 pixels, and 10 pixels. What that means is our shadow is going to be 3 pixels to the left instead of going right. It's going to be 2 pixels down. If it were a negative number, it'd be 2 pixels up. And then also the 10 pixels is the amount of blur. So that's a moderate amount of blur. If we were to change this, like for example, to 1 pixel, you can see that now we have our shadow that's more solid. So I wanted to have a little bit of a blur there. So put that back as 10. And then that's our color for our shadow. This right here. Letter spacing is 4 pixels. So that's the spacing between each one of the letters here. The other thing I want to do while I'm on this page is I want to go ahead and style this button. This looks pretty plain on the page compared to this text now. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some more CSS that I have over here. And I'll copy that and I'll drop it in here. Okay, so now you can see that our button is, the text is bold. We've given it a size of 20 pixels. The font is Arial. It's got a solid border around it now. You can do solid or like a dotted border. And then the border width is 2 pixels. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just give you, at this point, a really high level view of the CSS. I'm not going to go too much in depth here. All I'm doing right now is I'm styling the background color. So there's actually a filter here that controls the level of brightness of this image. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting the color. I'm using, so there's RGBA, red, green, blue, and then alpha channel. So I'm setting the R, G, and B to zeros. And then I'm setting the alpha channel or the transparency to 0.2. So you can go anywhere from 0.0 to 1.0 with this value. That's the value we want to change. So if I change this, for example, to 0.5, you'll see it got darker. If I go to 0.9, it's even darker. So we go to 0.2, that looks pretty good there. Next we'll come down here. What I'm doing is widening this title. And then I'm also removing this left. There's a margin on the left that you can't see. It's not visible. So I remove that so that this title is more centered on the page. So if I were to close this out now, you can see the title centered right on the page there. So that looks good. Go back into the customizer. There's our additional CSS. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've done some styling for desktop. I'm going to do some styling now for tablet. So very similar to what we did earlier. I am just going to go ahead and copy this here. drop this in. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to tablet. So that's what our tablet settings look like now. So what I've done here basically is I've set our screen size for our tablet. I think it's going to be somewhere between 720 pixels and 1024 pixels. I've got the CSS here, very similar to what we did with our desktop settings, but with a smaller font. And then the same thing with the button. So that looks good. Okay, so I've done the same thing with the mobile device. Now if you click over here to our mobile view, it's a lot smaller, but we've got our text styled pretty similar to the other pages. All right. Okay, so let's just quickly recap here. We've got our top bar done. We've got this navigation area all finished here. So we've got our logo a little bit larger, and then when we hover over our menu items, they increase in size and they also gray. They turn gray a little bit. If you select an item, it turns green. You can see the home is currently selected. It's green. That's pretty cool. And then we've got our tech from the novice's perspective style now. That looks a lot different from what it looked like before when it was all white. And then we styled our button. And then our image is a little more visible too. It's a little more transparent. So that looks pretty cool. What we're going to do now is just go ahead and drop down here to the next section. I'm going to go ahead and style this area. And what I'd like to do here is more or less just kind of add some sort of a shadow to this text to help it stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to do that to every single, what they call H2. So this is a heading 2 on this page here. They're all going to have a similar look to them. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my CSS here. And copy that. I'll put that down here. All right. So you'll notice now that every single one of these, why choose us, the products area, our awesome team, what our clients say. I skipped the subscribe to our newsletter. We did the latest news and get in touch. All have that same shadow. We're going to be changing the get in touch later, so as that looks a little bit odd on the page, but they all have the same shadow on the header text to help it kind of stand out a little bit more, or the heading text I should say. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I wanted to work specifically on this why choose us section. So we've already talked about how we styled this H2 text here. That's all done. The other thing I did here is I actually styled each one of these icons. I put a little bit of a border around it to help it stand out a little bit more. And then I styled this text here too. So that stands out a little bit more. So that pretty much completes the why choose us section. We'll go ahead and move down to products. And I'm not going to do anything in the products section, I don't believe. Yeah, I think I'll just leave that as is. Our awesome team looks pretty good. I think I may make one change in the testimonials area. And what I'm going to do here, because we've got sort of I want to help each section kind of stand out a little bit. So I've got this white. Then we've got this products with the gray. Then we got the white again. So I think what I'm going to do is make the what our clients say, I'm going to make that a gray, just like the products section. So we'll come down here and I'm going to grab my CSS here. Copy that. And I'll drop that in here. And you can see now that's gray, just like that products area above. So all I did to find that color was I used that inspect tool that I talked about earlier to find the color of this section and then match this section to that color. All right, one of the next things I want to do here is I want to go ahead and center this enter email address text on that line. So I'm going to drop this CSS in here. text align center. There we go. And that's the name of our form right there. And the field. Let's go ahead and do some more work on this. I think I want to center the submit button also. Grab that CSS. Let's see here, global. All right, so this here centers that button on the form. So now we've got our text on this line centered, and we've also centered the button on the form. So I think that section is done. I'm going to go ahead and save this, publish that, and we'll come down, see what the next thing we're going to do here. Come down here to our blog section next, and let's see here. I think I want to do something with this card here. Let's see if we can make this stand out a little bit more. All right. So all I did here was I made a box shadow around this text and this picture for each one of the blog posts to help it stand out a little bit more too. So that looks pretty good there. Okay, so next I'm down here in the contact section. So I've taken care of the blog section. I've moved down here to the contact section. And I'm going to get rid of this shadow on this text. It looks a little odd in this background here. So let's go ahead and grab some more CSS out of my file here. Say copy, drop this in here. All right. So basically all I did was I took that shadow that we turned on for all the other H2 items up here and above. I turned it off in this one section. So that's turned off. And what I'm going to also do, I want to change this header in the contact us form there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some CSS for that. And what I'm going to do is turn that into a 2-color gradient using some red and some gray. So I copy this here, drop it in there. So that looks kind of cool now, and I like that effect there. So that's done. Click on publish to save our changes. And let's see what else is next here. Okay, so I think that's just about it on our page here. Let's take a look at it again. Go back up to the top here and just kind of recap what we did here. So as we saw early on, we did our top bar. We got rid of that add a menu item up here. We changed the color to sort of a bluish gray. We made the logo a little bit larger here. And we made our menu items a little bit bigger, changed the font on those. And then also we have this hover effect now. And also the selected item turns this green color. We're on home right now, so that's the selected item. For our main title section, we lightened up the filter that affects this image so that the image stands out a little bit more. We also formatted this text. Remember, it was just plain white. Now it's red with a little bit of a border around it and a shadow. Got some nice spacing on it now. We also changed this Learn More button. So we changed the font size, made it a little bit bold, and then also added this border around the button. And then we come down to the Why Choose Us section. We changed the heading here, added a shadow, our play button, check mark, and then our support icon there. They all have a little bit of a border around them. Did a little bit of a shadow on this text here. Videos, quality, and support. Products area, all we did here was put a little bit of shadow on this text. Same thing in this section, a little bit of shadow on the text here, our awesome team. We changed this section color to match the color above, since we have sort of an alternating color background going on. So that color is the same as the products area. And same thing with the heading there. We didn't do anything to this section where the logos sit. In our subscribe area, we formatted the enter email address so that it's centered, and then we also centered our button. In the latest news section, change the text there with a shadow. And then we also added a box shadow around each one of our blog posts there. Then down in the contacts section, we turned off the shadow here for get in touch. And we also added this gradient, gray and red, for the contact us header. So that's pretty much it. Oh, the other thing we did too, at the same time that we styled the button above in the subscribe section, where we centered it on that form, that same CSS also centered the button on this contact us form. So that's pretty much it for this home page at this point. I don't think there's going to be any need for any additional changes, but we'll see how that goes. We have some more styling to do on the other pages, but I think this page is pretty much done. Okay, so before I leave the home page, I want to make one more change. I think this title is a little bit small, so let's take a look here. So I'm going to close out of the customizer. Give that a second to reload here. All right, you can see the title's pretty small on this big background, so I want to make this a little more prominent. So what I'm going to do here, just kind of to give you some background as to what I'm doing, I'm going to go into Inspect real quick. So if we right click on here and go into Inspect, and if we click on this, let's see here, click on this, select an element item here, and we hover, you'll notice that when I hover over this area, we have a margin that's 144 pixels on the left and the right hand side. So I want to remove that margin, and that'll allow our text to spread out a little bit more, and then we can also make the text a little bit larger. So you see right there, margin 0 pixel and then 144 pixel. And so what that notation basically is saying is make my top and bottom margin the same at 0 pixels and make my left and right margins the same at 144 pixels. So we're going to go ahead and remove that margin so that'll allow our text to spread out. So what I'm going to do here, I already know what my element is, and I also know what the CSS is for that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into the customizer. Let me close out of this here. Go back into the customizer. So we'll go down here to additional CSS, and I'm going to find my item here. Main title. So I want to change this margin. Instead of using pixels here, I'm using percentage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and just make it 0 for our 20%. So 0 margin on the top and bottom, and then right now it's 20% left and right. So I'm going to make that just a straight 0. So 0 pixels, like that. You notice that our text widened. Now this exclamation mark important basically is saying override any other settings. So maybe there's some other code that has a margin setting related to this big title slider, this whole content area. So what I'm saying here is by using this exclamation mark important is use these settings instead of anything else that you may have stored in your code. So I've got margin 0, 0, which spread this out. Now what I'm going to do is go back up here to my desktop settings, and I'm going to change the font size for this big title section here. I'm going to make that 125. Let's see if that does it for us here. 125, and that looks a lot better. I'm also going to go ahead and change the button size since it's a little bit small in comparison to the text now. So let's make this, let's go up to like around 30 on the button, 30 pixels. Now the button, the changes we made to our button are not going to show up for some reason, and it could have something to do with the size of this window here. They're not going to really take effect. So what we have to do is publish, and then we need to X out of this to see our changes really on this screen. There we go. So there's our Learn More button. It's a little bit larger. Go to our larger text now. So that looks a lot better, I think. Let's go ahead and go back into the customizer real quick. And I want to take a look at the other devices too. So let's go to tablet. That looks decent. I'm just going to leave that. And then there's our phone or our mobile device. So we could make that a little bit larger too. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. And I've got my CSS in here. So again, we have these settings for based on screen size. We've got desktop here, tablet there, and then I'll come down here to mobile right there. I'm just going to go ahead and change this button, or sorry, the font size here for the text. I'm going to up that to about, let's go 25. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. I think that's going to be much better. All right. We could try 30 just to see. Yeah, that looks even better. So let's go ahead and go with 30. 30 pixels. We're going to publish that now. Let's go back to our tablet here. I think we'll leave that alone. So that's pretty much it then. Let's go back to our desktop. Yeah. So that looks much better. Definitely. Okay, so we've pretty much finished up the home page. We're going to go ahead and move on to the About Us page. So I'm going to click on About Us. And that brought up the About Us page. And as you can see here, we've got basically no contents on this page currently. So we're going to go ahead and edit this page by clicking on the Edit Page link at the top of the page here. And that's going to bring us into this editor that we used before for our posts. So this editor is called Gutenberg. And if you've had any sort of experience with WordPress, you'll know that this is a fairly new editor. I think it's been around for about a year. So just as a side note, if you want to use the classic editor, you just go over here to plugins and then click on Add New. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I know a lot of people don't really like this Gutenberg editor. So if you're used to using the classic editor and you want to use that, just come over here to Classic Editor, which will be in the Featured tab typically. If not, just go over here to the search field and type in Classic Editor. Then once that appears, all you want to do is click on Install Now, just like you would do with any other plugin. And I've already installed it, that's why you don't see Install Now here. And then you would just activate it, and that would override the Gutenberg editor. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the Gutenberg editor. So we'll go back up here to Pages and go All Pages. Just kind of a shortcut way to get back to our About Us page. We've got About Us right there. We'll click on Edit. All right. So if we drag our mouse over this, you'll see About Us as our header. So the first thing we want to do is look at our document setup. Let's come over here and take a look. And we're going to look at permalink. We're not going to really change that at all. We'll leave that alone. We've got featured image. We'll leave that alone. Discussion, we're going to leave that alone. And then page attributes. We're going to change that to full width template. So we'll come down here to page settings and we have several options there. We've got our layout without a sidebar, left sidebar, and then a right sidebar. So we're going to stick with the first layout. And we're not going to change any other settings here. So we'll click on Update, just to make sure our changes are saved. All right. So we're going to start typing in this field here. We're going to add some text. So there are lots of different what they call blocks here you can add. So if I say Add Block, I click on that, it'll give me a list of all the blocks that are available. So these are the most used. If you scroll down, there's some common blocks here, and then some formatting, layout options, like if you want to add a separator, maybe some sort of a spacer or a button, you can do that there. So widgets, embeds, all sorts of different stuff you can do in here. So we're going to go ahead and go back up here, and I'm just going to choose the paragraph one. And I'm going to go ahead and type some text in here. Hold on just one second. I'll grab my text. So I'll copy that and paste it in here. There's my text. I need to reformat this a little bit because I have some carriage returns there. All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a URL in here too. I'm just going to highlight this text here, YouTube channel. I'll come up here and click on this link. Click on that. And I'm going to drop my URL in there. Click on paste. And then click the apply button. There we go. So now we have a URL there. You can see right there that that is now highlighted. And what I'm going to do is add another block here. So I'll go ahead and go up to the top here. And I'm going to click on the plus sign for add a block. I'm going to choose YouTube. Choose that. And what I want to do is center this YouTube video embed that I'm going to put on this page. So I'll click on Align Center. And I'm going to drop a URL in there. And I'll just paste that in there. And then I'll click on Embed. So that's pretty simple, pretty easy to do there. So what this is a link to a video that I made on installing a cast iron tub. So I have a separate YouTube channel called DIY Apprentice. And that YouTube channel is basically I do home improvement and automotive repair and maintenance on that channel. So those are a couple of my hobbies that I like to do. So in this particular video, I'm installing a cast iron tub for a bathroom remodel. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, go ahead and check out that channel too. And hopefully subscribe also to that channel. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and click on update to save this. All right, so we've got our update saved, and we can do a view page here. Okay, so we've got our text on the page there, pretty much where we want it. We've got our link right there. You can see that that text is in green, which is the green that we chose as our accent color. And then down here, we've got our YouTube video embedded, and that's not really centered the way I want it. So that is a little bit of a problem here. So what we have to do is do some CSS, some styling in the background to get this centered. So let me go over here to the customizer. I'm going to click on customize. And I'm going to go down here to edit CSS. And I already know what this is. I went into Stylebot to figure out what this is. So what I'm doing basically, there's a container that contains this video. So let me do that real quick just to show you what I'm talking about here. Let me just publish this real quick, even though it didn't really add anything. Go ahead and click on the X there. And I'm going to go ahead and right click on this area and click on Stylebot, Style Element. And as you can see here, there's a container. And so this embedded video is on the left side of that container. I want it centered. So that's the name of the container right there. And if I go over here to, let's see, I don't really see an align center option here. Nope, I don't see anything. So what I would do is just click on Advanced, and then we can add some CSS specifically for this element here. So I'm going to type in text align center. You can see that moved over right away. Okay. And then I'm going to click on Edit CSS, and there's our CSS right there. Okay, so I already have that saved off somewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and reset this page so we don't have a conflict there. And then I'll just go ahead and close out the Stylebot. I'm going to come over to the customizer, click on Customize. And I'll go down here to Additional CSS. I'm going to scroll way to the bottom. Okay, and I'll just drop that in here. There's our CSS there. I'm going to actually format this a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite this here. Say paste. format this a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. So there's your comment center embedded video, and then we've got here, this is on the about page specifically. Okay, so click on publish to save it. All right, so on this page, if you wanted to, for the about us page, you could add a lot more items on here if you wanted to. I just made this really simple. So that's pretty much the about us page. We're going to do some styling on this page also, so we'll come back to that in a bit and update the styling. Okay, so we've got our contents all set up on the About Us page. We're going to go ahead and now start to style it a little bit. And we need to take into account our 3 devices once again. We've got our desktop down here in the corner. You can see these devices that we need to worry about. Desktop, our tablet, and our mobile device. So I'm going to start with the desktop first. And one thing I'd like to do is change this font a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab my CSS that I have. I'll copy that off my document that I have off to the side here. I'm going to go up here to the desktop area that I've set up. Scroll the way up. There we go. There's our desktop area right there. I'm going to come down here. Go ahead and drop this code in here. All right, so that looks a little bit better. So what I've done basically here is I have styled the font at 22 pixels, and I've changed the font itself to Arial. So that looks a little bit cleaner. The other thing I want to do is go ahead and change this title a little bit, give it a little bit more style to it. You can see right now it's pretty bland looking. So what I'm going to do here, I've got some CSS for this. Grab that. And I'll drop that in here in our desktop area. All right. So basically what I've done here, let me go ahead and show you what this looks like now. So what I've done here is, first of all, I have added a little bit of a stroke. So a stroke, once again, is basically a border around the text. You can see that there. There's a black border, or a blackish color. I think it's like a gray. Actually, I'm sorry, that is black. We've got a shadow on that also. It's a little bit of a shadow there. So that's what. So there's our stroke right there. Here is our shadow. Our shadow is a mixture of gray, black, and white. And then we've got our font size. I've set that at 70 pixels. And then our letter spacing, so I wanted to space these letters out just a little bit to help that stand up off the page there. So that is 5 pixel spacing. And then I've also moved this text up a little bit. So that's what this margin top does here. And then the color itself of this actual text is a light gray. Now this CSS does affect other pages, including the shop page. So if we go to shop, you can see that the shop has also been styled the same way. And then also the blog page has been styled the same way also. So that's how that looks there. Let's see here. Next, we're going to go ahead and do that same styling on tablet. So I'm going to go over here to tablet. You can see that now tablet is showing that same white font we saw earlier. We go here and go back to About Us. We're going to start there first. So yeah, the styling we just added has not affected our tablet display. So we're going to go ahead and change that for tablet. So let's go ahead and grab some CSS for that. And I'll drop that in here. Go down right there. Okay. So what I've done here is I have set this font size to 20 pixels and then made the font itself, the font family is Arial. So same thing as what we did before, but just a different font size. All right. And I'm also going to go ahead and style this header text here. Let me grab my styling for that. And I'll drop that in this area also. Okay. So just more or less a repeat of what we did in the desktop area or the desktop settings. That's what we've done here. Right? So that's our About Us for tablet. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the About Us for the mobile device. We're going to do basically the same thing we've done already. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. All right, so we'll go ahead and go down here to our mobile area. Let me go ahead and switch the display also. And I'll come down here. I'm going to drop this in. Okay, so we've got our header font adjusted. And then we've also got our body font adjusted there. Okay, there's our video image or embed there. Okay, let me go ahead and publish this before I forget. I'll click on Publish to save our changes. We're going to do some more styling. That's just the basics of what I wanted to do here. So we'll go ahead and continue on and fix this up and try to make this look a little bit better. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on with making our adjustments here. What I'd like to do is go back to desktop first of all. And one thing I want to adjust is this header section. I think this really looks kind of big. I want to kind of shrink this a little bit. So I have this CSS I'm going to go ahead and drop in here. Now, just kind of briefly explain what this is doing. So we have this division or div, and it's got an ID of primary. Inside that div, there's also another div that has a class of header filter. So the difference between these two in terms of class versus ID, you might have multiple items with the same class, but generally there's only going to be one ID that's going to be unique to an item on your page or on your website. So as an example, you'll have a social security number or maybe a driver's license number that's unique to you. That would be considered an ID. Whereas you may have a class, like a class of, say for example, a make of cars, Honda. You're going to have multiple cars within that class of car or make of car. It could be Honda Civic, Honda Accord, etc. So that's the difference between a class and an ID. So if we were to go and look right now at our, let's do an inspect here to look at the code. I'll just kind of briefly show you this. I'm not going to get too geeky, like I said. So if we come down here inside of our code and we highlight over this, you'll notice right here, there's our primary. That's our div ID primary. Okay, so this div here has an ID of primary. Again, a div is just basically a box. Inside that box, we have another box right down here. And that one has a class of header filter. So this is the one we're actually going to be adjusting. We're adjusting the filter, we're adjusting the size of that so that is 175 pixels tall. Okay, so it's a little bit tricky, but that's exactly what I wanted to do there to start off. We're going to make some more adjustments here. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this by coming up here and clicking on the X. So that's the really cool thing about using inspect, is that once you start to understand what CSS is and HTML, these all look really confusing right now, but once you really get what the HTML and the CSS is doing, inspect is a really powerful tool for looking at your code and making adjustments using the CSS. So we'll go ahead and close out of this here. All right, so I want to add one other CSS item here. This one's not going to be as easy to explain, so I'm going to kind of gloss over it. But basically what I want to do is restrict the height of this. There's a container here. I want to restrict that height so we don't have this shrink. So let's go ahead and drop this in here. I'm actually going to put this CSS in the global area. So I'm actually on, so you can see right there, I'm in desktop. So I'm going to go down here to the global area. That's more, it's an area that I set up regardless of the size of the desktop or the size of the screen. So let's go over here. And it's also regardless of the page. So this global section is for the whole website, basically. So put that in there. You can see that kind of moved up a little bit. So that's going to affect later on with some of the other work we're going to do to kind of pull this text up. So that's all set up there. And if I go over to shop and blog, you can see that kind of all got pulled up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and go back over here. Okay, so what I want to do is pull this all up. So I'm going to kind of do a little trick here, and that is I'm going to go up here to our desktop first of all. Go back to our desktop area. I'm going to do that one first. And there it is. I'm going to drop this code in here. Okay, so basically what we've done, there are two boxes, one next to the other, and there's a margin between them. So what I've done is kind of faked it to where the one almost falls inside the other, so to speak. So typically you'll see this margin has a positive number, but I made this a negative number to pull this text up so that it's visible. Now for the average reader, you'll see the text like this without so much space there, but in the background it's kind of almost like the divs are crossing over one another. So that's basically what I did there. And I'm going to take out, let's see here, got one too many of these curly braces here. That's why it's complaining over here. So I'll take that out. I should do that. Okay. So if we go look at the other pages like shop, you can see that white space we had here before is gone. And we go to blog. That's all been pulled up a little bit. So that looks a lot cleaner now. So let's go ahead and go back over here to About Us again. And let's see here. Some of those same changes I made for desktop, I'm also going to make those changes for tablet and for our mobile device. So this may be a little bit confusing at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed with adding the CSS. It'll all make sense. Let me go over here first of all, change this to tablet so we get our tablet view. You can see right now that's not adjusted properly. So I need to make the same changes I made on desktop to our tablet view. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to drop in, first of all, I'm going to change my header size. Grab this CSS, drop it down here. There we go. You can see our header size changed. And then I'm going to repeat our margin change. So I'm going to come down here and drop this CSS in here. And you can see now everything got pulled up. So that's it for tablet. Let's go over here to mobile device. You can see we're going to have to make similar changes here. So I'm going to come down here in my CSS to my mobile device section. So copy, drop this in here. Okay, so I'm in the mobile device section. There we go. So you can see that header shrunk. Now we need to change this white space. We're going to bring all of our text up here. Grab the CSS for that. And I'll drop that in here. There we go. So now that looks much better than it looked before. So let's go over here to our tablet. That looks better. And then we'll go back to our desktop. Okay, so that looks pretty good now. Let's go ahead and look at shop again. Sorry, let's go to our tablet and look at shop. Okay, mobile device. That looks pretty good. All right. Okay, so we've adjusted everything that I think we want to do here so far. One thing I'd like to do is kind of change this filter a little bit. So let's go ahead and it's kind of like what we did on our home page. Remember we had this much darker before. We lightened it up a little bit. We're going to do a similar change here in our About Us. I think the shop, we're going to have to adjust the shop image. I don't really like this as it is right now. I'm going to change that. But and then blog. So there we go. We're going to adjust all those. So let's go ahead. First of all, what I'd like to do first of all, let's go to shop. And I'm going to close out of this, publish this here just to save our changes. I didn't save that previously. And I'm going to X out of this. And one thing I forgot to do earlier was to set our shop header image just like our other ones. So let's go ahead and let's see here. Let's go ahead and go to dashboard, I guess. Because that shop page basically came up when it came from our commerce when we added our Woocommerce, the plugin. So that is separate from all those other pages we built. So let's go ahead and go into pages. And we're going to go down here to shop. And I'm going to click on edit. Give that a second to load up here. And what we want to do here is I want to come down here to featured image. I'm going to set a featured image. Something we should have done earlier. And I'm going to choose that same image we used on those other pages, which is this one right here. Click on that. And then click on select. All right, there's our featured image. We'll click on update to save that. Okay. And let's click on view page. Take a look at our page now, see how it looks. Okay. That looks very similar to the other pages. If we take a look, it looks pretty much the same now. Good. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to our About page or About Us. And I'm going to bring up the customizer again. Okay, let's go into our additional CSS where we were before. What I want to do is adjust this filter here. It's a little bit dark. And so that's going to affect all these pages here, About Us, Shop, and Blog, but it's also going to affect how it looks on our different devices. So I'm going to put this CSS that I'm going to copy here, I'm going to put that in our global area. Scroll down some more. There's our global section right there. I'm going to put it right at the end. Okay, you can see that lightened up a little bit. So once again, this is we're using this RGBA where red, blue, green, and alpha. So we're not adjusting the red, the green, the blue, and we're only making an adjustment to the alpha channel, which is our transparency, our opacity. So that's what that is right there, 0.3. If I were to make this, for example, 0.9, kind of like what we saw before, that'll be really dark. So we're going to go back to 0.3. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and publish that to save my change. And if we were to look at that on our tablet now, you can see it's lightened up a little bit. And same thing on our mobile device. All right. Okay, so one other thing I want to do is I want to adjust the embed here. If you look at our mobile device as an example, it's cut off in there. It looks okay on the tablet, so no adjustment really is needed there. But what I want to do is just go ahead and put in a global change so that we have that adjustment for all of our devices. Now, like I said, since mobile is the only one that has that issue, you actually could just go ahead and drop this code that I'm going to put here. You could just go ahead and put it in the mobile section up here. Right in this area. You could just drop it in there instead. But I'm just going to put it in my global area that I've set up. And so I'll drop that in here. Okay. So this did shrink a little bit on tablet so that it's a little bit more proportional. It looks a lot better on this window. On desktop, it actually got a little bit larger. And then on our mobile device, it looks like it shrank also. So let me briefly explain what I did here. So as we talked about before, this embed sits inside of what's called a division. And that division has this class right there. So what I did was I adjusted that division first so that it sits properly on the page. And then what I did is adjusted this embed inside that division. So that's what I've done here. Like I said before, I'm not going to go ahead and explain all this because it may be a little bit confusing to understand, but this looks much better than it looked before, as we saw there, especially with the mobile device, the way it displays on there now. So it's definitely very important that you consider all your devices because, as we know, a lot of people are using tablets and their phones a lot more nowadays than ever before. So you're going to want to make sure that your website displays on all those devices as it should. Okay, so I think we're just about done with the About page. Let's go ahead and go back to our desktop over here. Get our desktop view back. And we're going to scroll up to the top here. And we're going to move on to the Shop page. Okay, so as you saw, we changed this image up here. And then the other thing we want to do is add some sort of a text here because right now it's a little bit uninviting. It doesn't really say much. It just says, you know, it's got some products listed. So I want to put something like check out our products here just to kind of add a little bit more description and personal touch on this page. So let me go ahead and publish this first before I get out of here. That's one thing I tend to forget occasionally is to hit the publish button up there. So all those changes we just added for our video, those are all saved now. So let's go ahead and click out of this, click on that X, and we're going to go here to dashboard. So let's go ahead and go over here to pages, all pages, and we're going to come down here to shop and click on edit. All right. So what I want to do is add a paragraph block. So I can click on this plus sign here and then click on paragraph. And if you just go ahead and start typing there without selecting the paragraph block, it'll automatically assume that it is a paragraph block. So I'm going to put in here, check out our products. Just really simple text there. And I'm going to make this font fairly large also. And I'm going to center it. So let's center it first. And then our font size, I'm just going to come over here and click on, you'll notice on the right hand side over here, we've got document and then we've got block. So that's specifically for this one block right now because that's the one that's active. If we had another block on the page, then we'd see some different settings over here for whatever other block style we're using. So right now we've got check out our products. I'm going to change the font size to large, make that a little bit bigger. And I'm going to make it bold also. Let's go over here and click on this B for bold. All right, that looks pretty good. And I think that's going to be about it. Let's go ahead and click on update. We'll just go ahead and keep the font also as is. Then let's click on view page. See what it looks like now. There we go. That looks much better. We have some sort of text now describing what this page is all about. So check out our products. It's really, I mean, it's not much of a description, but it's a little more personal as opposed to just having a bunch of products thrown on the page. So check out our products. Okay, so one adjustment I thought to make was to add some padding here. So remember, there's boxes inside of here that you can't see. So what I was thinking about doing was moving this down. So if you ever wanted to do that, all you would do is, I'll give you some code here. So we've got this thing called padding top. So basically what it did was, just like what we talked about before, when you have something like you're going to ship a UPS package, you have inside that maybe some styrofoam or something to protect the item inside of it. Right now we have no padding. Basically there's nothing protecting the item inside of it or surrounding that item inside of it. So if we were to add some padding to the top, we're basically adding a little bit of a styrofoam, so to speak, and that would drop this down a little bit. So you can do something like that if you want to. I think it looks fine without it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it, but that's just an example of how you would do that there. So padding top. So let's go ahead and publish that. It may not be necessary, like I said. So let's go ahead and I'm going to see what it looks like right now. Yeah, it doesn't look bad. So let's just go ahead and leave it. Okay, so let's take a final look at our shop page. We've got our header. We set that earlier. Then we've got our check out our products text there. And then we've got our two products. We've got a floppy disk. Now, floppy disk, we set it at $1 million. I think that was a little bit too high, so I dropped the price down to $1. So that should be a little more affordable. And then for our light sword, now this is a genuine light sword, by the way. This isn't the fake stuff. So we had this at $5,000, and we decided to go ahead and drop the price down, have a little special at $95. So there's our light sword. So that looks good. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to blog. And we set that earlier. I think we were pretty happy with that. That looks good. Let's go to cart. Okay. So this page, we want to make some adjustments here. I want to change this image. So I'm going to go over here to edit page. And we can see we still got this gradient back in the background there. We've got the image on top of that. Let's go over here to set featured image. And let's go ahead and go to upload files to find our file. Select the file. I'm going to choose this one. This one I made in Photoshop. Shopping cart. Say open. Okay, then select. Okay, so now that's our featured image. Shopping cart. We're going to make some adjustments to that to lighten it up a little bit. Let's go ahead and click on update. Okay, let's click on view page. All right, so that's our featured image. Now you'll notice that it's a little bit chopped off there. So let's go ahead and adjust that also. The first thing I want to do is lighten this up a little bit, and then we'll also kind of adjust the height a little bit too. I'm going to go over here to the customizer. Go down to additional CSS. I'm going to put this way at the bottom here. And this is our cart page. Okay, you can see that lightened up very much like what we did before with our RGBA. So I've got this set pretty low at 0.5. It's pretty light right now. Okay, so what we've done basically is centered this now on here by adjusting the height of it. So that looks much better. Okay, so we've got shopping cart here as our header. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out too. Close out this section. Put a little comment here to close this out. Okay. All right, so we've got our cart page basically started there. I think that's probably all the adjustments we're going to make to this page. Let's go ahead and click on publish to save it. Well, so far so good. Let's go ahead and make a few more additions here. And what I'm going to do is, the first thing I want to do is I want to add some social media icons to this website because we don't have anything right now. And social media is pretty much the driver of anything that happens in the internet world anymore. So we want to make sure we have some social media accessibility for our visitors to our website. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to our dashboard, and I want to add a plugin. So that plugin, we're going to go here, plugins, add new. And the one I want to add is called, this one is social media flying icons. So let's go ahead and search for that. And it's by Acurax. Acurax. See if that brings up what we want here. This one right here, social media, flying icons, floating social media icon. So let's go ahead and click on install now. Okay, it says installed. Let's activate it by clicking on activate. All right. So once we activate it, we've got this Acurax social icons options area. And I'm going to set the size of this. So what we're going to do basically, let me start here and just kind of recap or just kind of talk about what we're going to do here. We're going to add some social media icons to the top bar, and then we're going to have a couple other locations on the page too. We'll just kind of demonstrate some areas you can add your social media icons so that people can access your social media. So we're going to set the size to 45 pixels. 45 pixels. And then we're going to choose this theme down here. I like this one. It's a pretty cool theme. Theme number 7. You have a bunch of themes you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. Theme 7. And so that's all set up. So down here we've got our display order for our social media. You can drag these icons and move them around. I'm going to have, let's see, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are the 3 that I'm going to use. So the order is just fine. I'm not going to use the rest of these here, like Google+, Pinterest, YouTube, etc. So I think this order is just fine as is. And our Twitter username, in my case, is going to be DIY Apprentice. Okay, DIY Apprentice. For Facebook, I also have a Facebook page. Let me grab my Facebook URL here. Just make this simple. Copy and paste it in there. Say paste. And then my Instagram. Here's my Instagram URL. Drop that in here. So you can see right there, just to kind of pause a little bit, you can see they give you some hints as to how this should be formatted. So there's my Instagram. You can also add a custom icon if you want. Okay, let's come down here to the bottom, and I think that's about it here. So there's a selection for automatic and manual. So you can have what are called floating icons. So you've probably seen on websites where you have these icons that kind of float out here with the page. So as you scroll down and scroll up, the icons float with the page. So we're going to go ahead and use that also. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as is, automatic and manual. We want to have both automatic and manual icons. I'm going to save configuration. That's pretty cool. So it says your settings saved successfully. All right. So that's pretty much the basic setup of this. We're going to go ahead and start adding our icons now on our page. Okay, so that was pretty easy to do. Let's go ahead now and go to our website. So we're going to go up here and click on Visit Site. And you'll notice right away that our social media icons are floating out here on the right-hand side. Now, I would have preferred to have them on the left-hand side because as you scroll down the page, you've got the double chevrons that show up to take us back to the top of the page, and this is sitting right on top of that double chevron. So that's a little bit annoying, but since we are using the free version, we don't have the option of placing them on the left-hand side. So you'd have to upgrade to the paid version if you wanted to do that. So what I want to do now is add those social icons to our very top bar here. So let's go over here to Customize. And I'm going to go down here to Header Options. I'm going to click on Very Top Bar. And then just like what we did in the Subscribe section, we added a widget. We're going to do a very similar operation here. So click on Add a Widget. And we're going to add the Acurax social icons. Click on that. Now there is a title that's sitting up here above this that you can't see right now. We're going to go ahead and take this out. Okay. And then you saw that our icon size shrunk. So we want to adjust that icon size. Let's make that 45. Make that a little bit larger. Like that. Okay. There's our icons there. And we've already set up our default theme, that was number 7. So we'll leave that alone, and we're going to click on Done. You can do Apply, it doesn't matter. Then click on Done. All right, then click on Publish. Very cool. So now we've got our social media icons at the top of our page. So if we were to click on that, you can see as we hover over, it says visit us on Twitter, visit us on Facebook, visit us on Instagram. So if you click on that, it'll take you to those various social media. All right, so that's pretty much it for our social media. We're going to add another social media section. I just want to kind of show you some options as to where you can put social media on your page. So you don't have to do all these, of course. It'd probably be a little bit of overkill to have them all on the page, but I just wanted to kind of show you some of the options that are available. Let's go ahead and click the back arrow here. Get out of this menu. All right. So now what we're going to do is I want to fill out this footer section at the bottom here. There's really not anything in the footer area. So I want to kind of beef this up a little bit. Maybe add a couple more options that aren't typically added on a website, but just show you some things you can actually do to make this a little more fancy. Maybe add a little more flair to it. So let's go ahead and tackle that next. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is add a social media feed to our footer. So let's go over here to close out this customizer. Click on the X there. All right. Then we're going to go here to Tech Apprentice Demo, then Dashboard. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to add a plugin. And that plugin is called Feed Them Social. So we'll come down here to Plugins and click on Add New. And we're going to come down here in our search field. We're going to type in Feed Them Social. See if that pops up here. It may be one word. There it is right there. Feed Them Social. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest. So let's click Install or Install Now. All right. And that's installed. We'll click on Activate now to activate that plugin. Okay, so if we scroll down here in our list, there it is right there, Feed Them Social. So let's go ahead next, and we're going to set our settings. So let's go in here to Instagram first of all. We're going to choose Instagram. We're going to set up Instagram and Twitter. So Instagram options. Now you're going to need an Instagram ID, so you're definitely going to have an Instagram account. So you can log into your Instagram account to get a access token. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to blur out some of this, of course. So I'll log into my Instagram account. Okay. And we've got a token there when we logged in. Okay. And then I'm going to have a follow button too. So if someone were to look at my feed and decide they want to follow me, they can go ahead and do that right below my feed. So I'm going to click on that drop down right there and change that to yes. And I'm going to put the button below the feed. And I'm going to click on Save All Changes. Okay. So just like what we did with one of our forms where we had to generate what's called a short code, we're going to do that also for Instagram. So let's go ahead and click on the settings page link there. We've got our feed them social here. We've got our Instagram feed, and our feed type is user feed. We'll leave that as is. Number of pics. Let's see here. I think I'm just going to go with 2. Make this, I don't want to have this, I don't want to have the social media dominate that footer. So I'm just going to keep it real small just to kind of give the visitors to our website a little bit of a taste of our social media. Okay, gallery width, I'm going to leave that as is. Gallery fixed height, we'll leave that alone. Social profile info, no. I'm going to try to keep this, like I said, as clean as possible. I'm not going to put much in there. Gallery style, I'm going to go with classic gallery style. Okay. And it says here, load more posts. So you'll have to have the premium option in order to use this feature here. Same thing with any sort of pop-up. Okay. I think that's going to be it. I'm going to generate the short code for that. There's our short code right there. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to put that on a notepad document. Okay, drop that in here. And I'll preface that with Instagram. Okay, just so we have that for later. Okay, I'm going to move this notepad off to the side here so it's not in our way. And what I'm going to do is go over here to Twitter options next. Click on that. And once again, we need to get an access token for Twitter. So let's go ahead and log into my Twitter account. And I'm using my DIY Apprentice one here. We'll say authorize app. Okay, so there's our access token and our access token secret. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to set my options for Twitter here. So show follow count, no. Show follow button, yes. I'm going to set that to yes. Placement, we're going to place it below the feed. Show videos, no. Hide profile photo, no. Again, we want to keep this very, very simple, very short. We don't want to have this dominate our footer. So let's go with yes on hide images and posts. We just want to have text show up. Again, we're just giving our visitors a little bit of a taste of our Twitter so they can go and check us out. And let's see here. I think the rest of this is going to be okay. We're going to save all our changes. All right. And then next we're going to go ahead and generate our short code just like we did with Instagram. So we'll click on settings page there. And I'm going to choose Twitter feed. And here I am going to choose my Twitter name. I'm going to put that in here first. DIY Apprentice. And number of tweets. Let's see here. I think I'm just going to go with 1 tweet here. I'm going to make this, like I said, really simple. 1 tweet. And our Twitter fixed height, that's fine. Show cover photo, no. Status bar, no. Show retweets, no. Show replies, no. And I think that's going to be it here. Let's go ahead and generate our short code. There's our short code for Twitter. We'll go ahead and copy this to our notepad. Copy. I'll bring my notepad over here. And I'll go Twitter. And drop that in there. All right. So that is pretty much it for our social media feed. Okay, so now we've got our Instagram and Twitter feeds all set up. What we want to do is go into our customizer So we'll go Appearance and Customize. There's other ways of reaching this too, but this is the most straightforward based on what we've done so far. We want to kind of stay consistent so we don't get confused here. But there are other ways of reaching this section we're going to go into. So we want to go to Widgets, and we're going to go to Footer 1. So just let me back up here real quick. So down here in the footer area, there are 3 sections. We've got a Footer 1, Footer 2, and Footer 3. So basically there are 3 columns in the footer. So what we're going to do here is in the first column, we're going to add Instagram. So we'll come over here and say add a widget. And we're going to choose an HTML widget. So I'm going to go with custom HTML. Choose that one. And this is where our short code is going to come into play. And what we can do here also, we're going to add a title. I'm going to add a title. I'm going to call this latest from Instagram. Okay. So there is our short code right there. We're going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to go ahead and paste that into the content area. And then we're going to wait for that to load up. And then we're going to click on Done. You can also click Apply just to make sure that it's saved in there. That's kind of more of just a safety step, I guess. And then click on Done. All right. And then we'll take a look at our footer. Now we've got a couple Instagram posts there. That's pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and format this later, but so we've got Instagram in there. We're going to go ahead now and add our Twitter. So let's go ahead and go back. We'll go to Footer 2. And we're going to do the same thing. Add a widget. And custom HTML. Okay, and then this title will be latest from Twitter. Latest from Twitter. So now I'm just going to go ahead and grab my short code for Twitter. Copy that, drop it into the content area. Paste it. You can see that showed up right there. Click on Apply. And then click Done. Okay, and then since I think we're pretty satisfied with this, we're going to make some adjustments to center this header here for latest from Instagram and latest from Twitter. But for now, and then also I want to center the follow button too. So, but for now, let's go ahead and save this. And then we'll come back and make those formatting changes in the 2 footer sections. And let's take a look also. I want to make sure I check this out on tablet and phone too. There it is on tablet and phone. Again, we're going to make some adjustments here. There's a phone. Okay, so now one thing I'd like to do, let me go ahead and click out of this here. Let's close out of the customizer. And we're going to go ahead and go visit site again. And I'm going to go ahead and go all the way to the bottom. And that looks pretty good. Now, what I'd like to kind of do here, again, these things I'm doing in the footer are not absolutely necessary. And you may not want to do these on your website. But what I want to do here is I want to add a couple items in this third footer section. And that'll kind of help to balance out the page a little bit too. So what I'm going to add down here, I'm going to add a little form down here. Very similar to the subscribe form up above. Subscribe to our newsletter, but I'm going to call it something a little bit different here. So let's go ahead and go back to our dashboard. And I'm going to go over here to WPForms and click on Add New. Okay, so I'm going to call this one Footer Form. And I'm going to choose the newsletter template. All right. And on this one, I'm going to have an email field And I'm just gonna, let's see here. I'm just gonna have a couple fields here, I think. So I'm gonna go with, let's go ahead and take this off here. So I'm gonna delete the name field. Say OK. I'm gonna have an email field. That looks fine. And then just a submit button. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this one. I'll click on the email field. I'm going to take the label off. I'm going to enter a placeholder also. So let's go down here to advanced options and put in some placeholder text there. So enter email address. I'll just enter email address there. Just going to paste this in. All right. And then our submit button, we'll work on that next. Let me go ahead and save this first. So we'll save this one. Okay, so I'll click on submit. And all I'm going to do here is just change the confirmation. So we'll come over here to confirmation. And then I'll just say here, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Okay, click on save. So that is our form there. What I'm going to do here is, let me go out here, I'm going to X out of this. And what I'd like to do is make sure I have the proper short code. Let's go ahead and grab that. I think we're only going to need the ID, but I want to get the whole short code just in case. Let's go ahead and copy this here. Okay, so copy, and then I'll just drop this into my notepad. Clear this out. I don't need this anymore, so clear that out and drop this in its place. Okay, I'll just go ahead and put this off to the side. Okay, so that takes care of our form. Now we'll just go ahead and add it to our footer. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that form to our footer. I'm going to go ahead and go to Appearance and Customize. All right, so now we're in there. I'm going to go ahead and go here to Widgets. And we're going to go here to Footer 3. Let me scroll my page down here so we can see it also as we're adding it. Okay, and then we're going to click on Add Widget, Custom HTML. And let's see here. I want to change the title here. I'm going to change that to Join the Club. Let me grab that text here. I have that off to the side. Copy. Okay. And then for our content, I want to add a little bit of a description here. So I'm going to use this. So this is going to be some HTML, just a paragraph tag, and then get exclusive club member discounts. Okay. Then below that, I'm going to add my form. So that's where this short code comes into play. So I'll drag my notepad form here, or notepad document here. Say copy, and then paste that here. You can see that showed up. Let's click on apply. And then we're going to click done. So let's click on publish to save that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We've got now, let me go ahead and X out of this so you can see it better. I'm going to go ahead and go back in, Tech Apprentice Demo, visit site. And I'll scroll to the bottom here. Okay, so in this footer, we've got latest from Instagram, latest from Twitter, and then we've got this form, join the club. And we've got a little submit button there. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now what I want to do also, now this is optional. You can probably go ahead and leave this out, but I just wanted to kind of give you another example of a place you could put some of your social media icons. So I'm going to put another row of social media icons right here in this third footer section. So let's go ahead and go to Customize. And let's go down here to widgets, footer 3, and then add a widget. I'm going to add the Acurax social icons. Okay, and then for the title, I'm going to change that to please follow us. Okay, let me scroll this down so you can see it here. All right. Now these are pretty small, so I'm going to make those a little bit larger. Let's go with stick with what we had before, 45. We'll stick with our default theme design. That kind of follows what we've done already. And then let's see here. I'm going to line these center. Center. Okay. That doesn't seem to have done much. We'll adjust that. But let's go ahead and click on apply. I think that might actually be center. And then we'll click on done. All right, so now we've got this please follow us down here. Again, you may choose to leave this out. And I think just having this latest from Instagram and latest from Twitter and then that form right there is probably good enough. I probably wouldn't put much more than that in here just to kind of keep this nice and clean. But I just wanted to kind of show you some options in terms of other places you can put your social media icons. So let's go ahead and publish this now. Make sure we save our changes. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and go back. Okay, and we're going to go here to additional CSS, and we're going to add some more CSS to kind of style the rest of this footer area, make this look nice and clean, so we have everything nice and centered and aligned correctly. Okay, let's go ahead and proceed with formatting this here. We want to center some of this stuff, make it look better. So I'm going to put our footer additions to our CSS. I'm going to put those way at the bottom. Okay, right below cart page here. So I'll grab that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to center the headings here. So I got that. Let's copy this. I'll drop it in here. Paste it. Okay. So basically what I did was, let me see here. So this is the class here, dot footer. And then this is the rest of that here. This is it's a heading 5. These are all heading 5s here. So that looks good. So I got text align center. So all this text is now centered. Latest from Instagram, latest from Twitter, and join the club. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and center our Twitter button. This one right here, the follow button. I want to center that. So I'll grab that code here. Say copy. Drop that in here. Okay. So again, as you'll go through this CSS, if you decide that you want to build a website similar to this one, all the CSS is labeled, and so you'll have all that available to you. So that button's now centered. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up this form here, make sure that everything here is nice and centered. Right now we've got this get exclusive club member discounts not centered, and also this text field here is not centered. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got some CSS for that. And I'll paste that in here. So you can see that moved over. Get exclusive club member discounts is now centered. I'm going to center this box here too, this text field. So I'll grab the code for that. Okay. So what I'm using here is what's called a flex box. So you can again go to W3 Schools to read a little bit more about that, but basically all I did here was center this box here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and center the enter email address text inside that box there. So I've got some CSS for that. And I'll go ahead and paste that in here. Okay, so all I'm doing here is using the WPForms 245. So this is the form ID right there. So if you look in the HTML, it'll show up with this. This is called this is an ID right there for that field. Text align center. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do here is I'm going to take some of the space out of here. There's a little bit of too much space right between this submit button and that field. So I'm going to take some of that space out. So that is done with, drop that code in there. Let me change this here. Got the wrong form name in there. 245. There we go. That looks better. So all I did here was change the margin. So margin bottom, that's the margin in this area here. I set that to 0 pixels. So that takes care of the form, and I'm just going to move on to now centering this please follow us down here and make sure that looks good too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and center this please follow us. So I've got some code for that also. Copy this here and drop this in. All right, that looks much better, nice and centered. One thing I have not done as I've been entering this code is I have not been saving it. So I need to click on publish to save it. Remember, you want to click on publish as often as possible. Anything could happen. Something could, your PC could get unplugged or anything strange and weird could happen. So make sure you hit publish as often as possible. So that looks good now. Let me go ahead and X out of this and we'll just take a closer look at this now. Okay. And scroll down to the bottom. That's pretty cool. So we've got our nice little Instagram post there, just a couple of those. We've got a Twitter post there. And then we've also got a form in our third footer area. And then we've got some social media icons below that. So that doesn't look bad. Now, if you go to the other pages, like About Us, that's going to show up there also. And shop page and the blog page and the cart page. So you may want to choose to turn these off. So let's go ahead and go into dashboard. And I'm going to turn it off on the cart page as an example. Let's go to pages. And I want to go here to cart and click on edit. Let that load up here real quick. Okay, so then on the right here on the right hand side where it says document, you've got this disable navigation and disable footer. So click on disable footer and then click on update. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, and then we'll click on view page just to take a look at it real quick. And our footer is gone now. So that's how you would turn that off if you don't want to see it and make your page a lot cleaner. So that's up to you if you want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on though for now. And click on update here. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back into appearance and customize. We're going to make one last change here. And let's see here. So we've got our, let's scroll to the bottom here. So one thing I want to do is I want to mimic what we did in our navigation bar above. I want to do that same thing down here in the bottom bar. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some code for that. So that includes, first of all, when you hover, the text goes gray, and then also the scale is increased by 1.5 times. So we'll do that first. Okay, we go here to additional CSS. Go way down here at the bottom in our footer area. And I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. All right, so let's hover You can see that there. Goes light gray, and then it's also bolded. And then also the scale is 1.5 times. So that's cool. And then we're also going to change the selected item color. So we've got green here. Let's go ahead and add that same green to our footer. Go ahead and choose that. Okay, so now you see that home is green. That looks cool. Let's see here. And we're going to click on publish. All right, that looks good. So let's just kind of recap. I think we're just about finished here. Let's recap on this here. So we've got our, I'm going to go ahead and close this out here so we can see a better view of our website. Go here and type Apprentice demo, visit site. All right. So as we talked about, we have our top bar with our social media icons. We've got our navigation area here. That looks pretty cool. We've got our main title area with our title and a Learn More button. We've got Why Choose Us. Done some styling in there. We've got our products area, our awesome team, what our clients say. We've got some corporate logos there, subscription section there. Then this latest news section is just a few blog posts. We've got a contact us section. And then down here we have a footer that has some social media feeds and a subscription section, and then also some social media icons down there. And then we did some styling to our navigation in the footer also. That looks good. So let's go over here to About Us and recap that. Now all I did here was just style this top bar. I wanted to shrink that so it wasn't so dominant on the page. And then we've got our About Us with a little bit of a border and some shadow, some text there. Now I put this in as a video, and that was just, sometimes, you know, video is pretty powerful nowadays. So if you wanted to add a video to more or less showcase what your company does or what you do as a maybe some sort of a talent, then a video is very powerful to have in there. So that's why I added that in the About Us page. Okay, let's go over here to shop. We've got our shop page with a couple of our items there. Go over here to blog. Got our blog post, and then if you click on the number 2 here, we'll go to our second page. Sidebar on the right hand side here. And you may want to turn off some of these sidebar items, so that's up to you. You can go into the settings and change that. And then our cart page. So what I want to do before we leave here is I want to do something with this cart page just to show that it actually is working and put some items in our cart. Okay, so let's go back over to our shop page. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this add to cart. I'm going to choose one light sword. And then I'm also going to choose the floppy disk. I'll add one of each to the cart. And you can see right there, view cart. Click on that. And that brings up our shopping cart page. And we've got these 2 items listed here. And let's see here. You've got a field down here for adding a coupon code if you want your visitors to be able to add a coupon code. And we've also got on the right hand side our cart totals, subtotal of $96. So we've got one item at $95, one item at $1 for a subtotal of $96. Shipping is free. And then our total is $96. So you can proceed to checkout. Now this is not fully functional, but I presumably you could, proceed to checkout from here, and your visitors could actually pay for items on your website using like PayPal. So I don't have that all set up right now, but that is something you could do pretty easily using WooCommerce. So if I were to go over here and change this floppy disk, say I wanted to change it to 2, I could do that. Then click Update Cart. Okay, so it's cart updated, and now it's showing $97. So that's just an example of some things you can do with WooCommerce and just in general with a shopping cart on your website. This can get a lot more elaborate than what I'm showing you here, but I just wanted to give you a really simple example so that you have some sort of reference point. Okay, so before we wrap up today, I wanted to talk a little bit about creating a privacy policy, which is something that's very highly recommended nowadays when you're creating a website. So if you come over here to Pages and go All Pages, and if you scroll down here, you'll notice there's a privacy policy page there. Now that actually came with WordPress. I did not install that. That was already there. I didn't create my own page. So if you click on Edit, and you'll see this template pops up for a privacy policy. If you come up to the top, you'll see this link that says View Privacy Policy Guide. So let's click on that. And we'll scroll down here. So this basically is some suggested text that they mentioned for putting in your privacy policy. And they give you some hints as to some things you should include, the sections you should include in your privacy policy. And the sections are already there. You just need to fill them out. So I would highly recommend going through this and creating your own privacy policy for your website. So there's that. And what you're going to want to do is put your privacy policy. You can put it in your footer or also put it in your primary menu. I would at least put it in the footer, which means you're going to have to create separate menus if you decide to put it in the footer and not put it in your primary menu. So we've already seen how to do that. That's pretty simple. Okay, so at this point you could actually make your website live. So before you do that though, a couple plugins at least that I would recommend. If you're using Bluehost, there are quite a few things in the background that will help in terms of security that they have set up. But a couple that I like to use, so I'm going to go over here to Dashboard. And I'm going to go down here to Plugins and then Add New. And the first one I'm going to search for is called WordFence. So this is a pretty cool plugin, and it helps to add a little bit of security to your website. It blocks, it's more or less a firewall type of plugin. So it scans for malware, it blocks traffic that's going to your website, that's trying to hack into your website, that kind of thing. And it also will send you alerts to your email to let you know kind of the latest things that are going on with any sort of traffic to your website. So I would check out WordFence. And then another one I like to use is called Yoast SEO. Yoast SEO. So Yoast SEO says improve your WordPress SEO. So what this will do is it will analyze your content for you and tell you, kind of give you some hints as to some improvements you can make to your content for search engine optimization. So again, search engine optimization means basically optimizing your website so that people can find your content and visit your website. So that's another one, Yoast SEO. Okay, so it looks like we're just about finished. What I'm going to do here is go ahead and make my website live. Now to do that in Bluehost, all you do is go over here to Bluehost, back to Bluehost. And I'm going to go over here to My Sites. I'm going to hover over this and I'm going to choose Manage Site. Okay. Then we'll go to Settings. And way down here, there is a Coming Soon page. Right now that's turned on. Coming Soon page on my site. So all you do is click on that to turn it off. And that's off now. And then that should be about it. Let's go ahead and view the site now. Tech Apprentice demo. I'm going to go ahead and log out real quick and see if I can access it. So let's go ahead and log out. All right. Grab my URL here, copy that. Go ahead and close out of this window. And paste, see what happens here. There we go, our site is live now. There it is. Cool. All right, so there you have it, the website build using the free version of the Hestia theme. So we have a very minimal amount of money into this build. I think we spent money on pictures with Shutterstock and then also on the hosting service through Bluehost. But everything else was pretty much done for free. So I hope you got a lot of information out of what I was trying to convey here. Hopefully the concepts came across on video and you can take this information and move forward and build your own unique website. So check the description below. It's going to be loaded with a lot of different information you can use. And thanks for watching. See links in the description below. Comment, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check us out on social media. And thanks for watching.